Welcome, TAPPI members everywhere, to an exciting series of Q&A that will include 3 individuals that are making waves in the paper and allied industries. My name is Garrett Fisher, one of the primary moderators for this event. I am very excited for everyone to be joining us. This series of Q&A will bring us an exclusive 1-week look into the minds of these individuals with the hope of bringing about an open discussion between TAPPI members everywhere of what your answers to these questions might be, as well as how we can apply some of these individuals' techniques in our own lives to better ourselves in the soft skill areas of leadership, communication, and relationships. During the event week, 5 separate Q&A videos with the designated speaker that week will be revealed on TAPPI Connect, where all members can then join in on a moderated discussion about each question, the answer, and how it relates to your life until the end of the week. This unique 5-day event each month is being brought to you by the TAPPI Young Professional Division, better known as the TAPPI YP Division. This week's guest is an individual that is brand new to the paper industry, but has already started drawing eyes as a future leader in the industry due to her passion for it. Please join me in welcoming Lexi Ivan, a chemical engineer from Yates Engineering, recent recipient of the Student of the Year Award from TAPPI, and previous president of the TAPPI Student Chapter of Auburn University, the school she just graduated from this past spring. Welcome, Lexi, and as I believe the saying goes, go War Eagle.
War Eagle, Garrett. It's good to be here.
So, Lexi, the first 2 questions I have for you are specifically dedicated to understanding how you approached the shift in your life moving from your college career to your professional career, and how that preparedness set you up for success in your new job. This life shift is commonplace in our industry, as I'm sure you know, so understanding how others navigate through the chaos is always helpful for anyone that may be listening. So kicking off this series of questions, if you had a list of goals immediately after graduation, what would have been on it?
Okay, so I'll preface this discussion by saying my whole life I was very strict on myself with school, and because of that I would sacrifice a lot of things to be able to be home and studying to make sure I did well in my classes, and that was all internal, and I really have no idea where it came from. My parents were always the one that were telling me, like, it's going to be okay, you're going to do fine. But I think from this, I knew I wanted to be a chemie since 7th grade. Because of that, that basically means for the past 10 years, becoming a chemical engineer and getting this degree has been my main goal driving me for 10 whole years. So once I finally got done with my classes and I submitted my last assignment, I really kind of felt like almost like that weight was lifted off my shoulders. Like this goal that's been driving me was finally accomplished. And that's something that really took me a second to realize, because like I said, that's what was driving me for 10 whole years. So from there, my first goal graduating was really just to allow myself to relax and just take a second and let myself off the hook for once and just be able to really relax, spend time with my family. And doing this, I soon realized that kind of being so focused on that professional goal of becoming a chemical engineer kind of pushed all of my personal goals on the back burner. So starting kind of in March with the COVID quarantine, I found myself with a lot of free time. So kind of starting then, I started working more on myself and having those personal goals, and basically, started working out more, started cooking more, being more healthy, and then also working on mental health more, because I really believe that working on mental health is just as important as, exercising every single day. So kind of having time to read self-help or self-growth books more, and picking up more hobbies and finding things that really made me happy. So that's kind of was my main goal right after graduation, but I couldn't let myself off the hook completely because I did have to transition my entire life to Birmingham. So I also had to worry about, transferring bills and everything into my name, packing up, getting ready to move. It was important to me to find somewhere in Birmingham to live that really felt like a home, since I had been living in college apartments for the past, 5 years. So finding a good apartment and being able to decorate it and make it my own. And then also a big goal I had was studying and passing the FE. It was really important for me to take that as soon as I could after graduation to make sure that none of that knowledge got to escape my head before too long. So that's really what kind of drove me right after graduation.
Yeah, I really like how you mentioned the mental health, taking the time away and kind of relax. And I think in this COVID time, that rings true for a lot of people. I know myself, everything got turned upside down in March, and although I thought at the time this was going to be horrible for a lot of people, I've actually found I've developed a couple of hobbies in my free time all of a sudden I've had, and I would have never found that hiking and backpacking and all this stuff that I'm doing now would be something that I would actually enjoy without all the free time that this kind of time is given a lot of people. So I appreciate your thoughts on that.
Thank you. And yeah, that's the point. Like, all of our hobbies and the things that make us happy are the reason we work, so that we have the money to do those things. So I think it's really important to make sure you make time for those.
Exactly. So Lexi, continuing our discussion of your life transition from college to your professional career, my second question is, what was your principal development focus in your first job?
Okay, so I found out while I was co-oping that one of my biggest weaknesses was dealing with ambiguity in the workplace. So basically, when I first started co-oping and I was told something to do, since I was being told to do it, I thought that meant that I should know exactly what steps I needed to take to accomplish it. And obviously, since I was, still in school, I hadn't finished all my classes yet, no one actually expected me to know every step of the way. But I thought, since I thought that they expected me to know that, that was a big cause of anxiety for me, because I felt like if I asked a question, that meant that, like, basically I was scared to ask questions because I thought that would make me look like I didn't know what I was doing, and I thought that I was failing. So a big principal focus on me starting this job was, learning from those experiences. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Give
it's
me 1
there.
second. Okay, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
It just turned off. That's so random.
Well, we'll splice that out. So,
You want me to I can just restart.
Kristen, you
Here,
want to just restart that
Sure,
question?
that'll be
yeah,
fine.
just my bad. It
Oh,
just
you're good.
randomly turned off. I don't know why. I'll make sure to click some buttons every now and then.
No worries. All right, we'll do it here in a sec. So, Lexi, continuing our discussion of your life transition from college to your professional career, my second question is, what was your principal development focus in your first job?
All right, so I found that during my co-op experience that one of my biggest weaknesses was dealing with ambiguity. As a student starting out in the workforce, when I was told something to do, I thought that that meant I should know all the steps to take to be able to accomplish that task. Obviously, since I was still a student, still learning, no one actually expected me to know everything about what I was doing. But that was a big source of anxiety for me when I first started working, because I kind of felt like I was failing. And if I had to ask questions, that meant that I was failing and I didn't know how to accomplish what I was doing. So I didn't always know the right questions to ask and who to go to. But since then, obviously, I've realized that you're not always going to know all the answers, and that's okay. And it's more of learning the right questions to ask and knowing who to go to and what resources to find out how you can accomplish your task. So one of the biggest things for me starting out has been learning what are typical, procedures for getting things done, what are the right questions to ask, and knowing who to go to when I have questions. And in that process, also allowing myself to stay confident in my abilities as an engineer, because just because I have to ask questions doesn't mean that I'm failing or I need to have anxiety because I don't know exactly what to do. So even though I might not know exactly how to accomplish a task right off the bat because I'm just getting started, I know that I'm going to work hard to figure it out. And I think that's more important than being able to get something done and, without any kind of questions.
Yeah, I full-heartedly agree with that. You're scared to ask questions. I don't think that goes away in any period of the professional career. I think that
Great.
but I think you always want to learn more, and there's always,
Yeah.
If you really want to motivate yourself, you're going to put yourself in situations where you're not comfortable, where you might not know everything you need to do to get the job done. If you're constantly comfortable, you're not challenging yourself, and you probably aren't going to really get the most out of the job of what you're doing. But I don't think it really ever goes away, but I do think that, finding that mentor, like you mentioned, and I'm actually a huge proponent, although it can be really dry work, of writing up SOPs is a great way to learn. All right, you will learn every single thing about a process if you say, why isn't there a procedure for this?
Yeah.
Write it up. Yeah, it's dry work, but not only is it going to help you, but other people are going to be appreciatory towards that for future employees. So thanks for those thoughts. I think they really ring true for everybody throughout TAPPI.
Exactly. And just in general, coming into an engineering design firm, most people here have more experience in the pulp and paper industry than, years I've been alive. So it's really on my part to be able to absorb as much of that information and knowledge as possible while I'm still young, and then being able to also apply, technology to that knowledge to be able to get stuff done. But I've definitely tried to find some good mentors here, and I found a lot of good ones, and just being able to ask those questions to learn more and try to absorb all that knowledge from people. That's, I think, my main job right now, pretty much.
Yeah, I preach to that. Well, Lexi, so how you motivate yourself past barriers in your life is how you eventually really end up in a leadership position in the future. Being uncomfortable is oftentimes how you kind of can gauge if you're going to, if you're progressing. As such, this is the discussion over the next two questions. So my third question is, what is more powerful, a success or a failure? And how do you remotivate after a failure?
Okay, so I really like this question, and I thought a lot about it. And I'd like to say that successes are more powerful than failures because that sounds more optimistic. But I really have to say that failures are definitely more powerful, in my opinion. Just think, successes are good and they make you happy and they give you that warm, fuzzy feeling inside, and they help you, fall asleep easier at night. But failures are what keep you up at night till 2 a.m. asking why you did that thing 7 years ago. But so I thought of a really good analogy for this. Think about yourself as, a college GPA. Your college GPA essentially is a culmination of all your academic successes or failures. So if you think of yourself as a, GPA, you're riding along and all your successes are great and they help, bump you up a little bit, but you really don't see a huge change when you're just making those B's and A's. But think back to, that one class you really didn't do well in and you got that D or F, and then all of a sudden your GPA just kind of plummets 2 or 3 points. And so basically that culminates to, that one failure is very impactful. But thinking about it more, I'm actually glad that it's that way, because that means, your average kind of standard day-to-day like mean is pretty close to those successes. On an average, you're pretty close to those successes. So even though those successes don't really seem like they're making a huge impact, altogether, they're what really drives you and keeps you up at that level. So even when you have that failure, it's good to know that that's not the norm. So when that does happen and I have that failure, to remotivate myself, first, I usually call my mom. That's 100% true, because you have to have a support system when those failures happen. It's really easy to get inside your head, and your brain is telling you that you failed, and you're kind of start going down a little spiral inside your own mind. And it's really important to have people external to that can remind you that you're doing a great job and it's okay and you're still going to be successful. So part 2 to that is then, after other people have tried to convince you that it's going to be okay and you can get past this, you then have to reconvince yourself that you can do it. So I think back to all of those successes that have happened throughout my life, and I let myself realize that all these successes really outweigh this one failure. And that's how I remotivate myself, because I tell myself that this one failure is not going to define me, and I'm going to get over it, and I'm going to get back to succeeding just as I had been done, because that's my norm, is being successful at things. And even though you do hit that one failure, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on everything you said there, Lexi. I think that the importance of failures from a motivation standpoint is best seen when everyone's going to remember that one failure you did, even if you had 15 successes beforehand. It's such a it just is a driver for change, and it's what's going to keep you up at night. Everything you said was spot on. So I really thank you for kind of sharing your thoughts on that.
No problem.
So Lexi, this next question I'm about to ask you, I think is going to hit home for every YP who is approaching their first leadership role and comes face to face with a question they may have asked themselves too late. The fourth question I'm going to ask you, just to get you prepared for it, is what is your biggest fear / obstacle in regards to leadership?
So I'll speak on behalf of my biggest obstacle with leadership. So I've come to realize that my biggest obstacle with leadership is understanding and realizing that even when you have people in the same organization, those people are still going to have individual goals and interests. So the hardest part about being a leader is being able to connect with those individuals and learn how to merge all those individual goals into a common goal for the organization. So I believe this really starts with taking a sincere interest in others and then building those relationships with others so that you can learn what actually personally motivates them. And only when that happens is when you'll become an effective leader, because that's when you'll be able to merge all of those ideas and actually know what they are. So that's definitely something that I struggle with, being able to connect with people on that personal level sometimes, and then being able to find out what those personal motivations are. And I hope that that's a skill that I'll continue to develop as I gain experience in the industry, and I'll get to know my coworkers a lot more, meet more people in industry, because eventually in this office, I'll get to the point where I'll be leading projects and I'll be leading a project team. And when that happens, I hope I'll be able to motivate them to work hard towards our common goal while remaining organized and efficient. So.
Yeah, I'm going to pull a word out that you mentioned right there, Lexi, and that's relationships. In a lot of the interviews that I've done for TAPPI, as well as a lot of the conversations I've had with people in the past, they always bring up relationships as, the critical piece of a leadership position, building those relationships. And I do think it's probably the item that young people struggle with the most. especially when you're working in a industry like TAPPI, where there can be such a wide, you know, age gap oftentimes, where, you know, you have people in their 20s working under a group that is primarily in their 50s. I think it can sometimes be hard to bridge that gap. But I think what you're thinking about right now is going to set you on a great path forward of, you know, focus on those relationships, trying to build that kind of trust with all your, you know, people in your group. And I think you're going to, you know, find that it pays off big in the end.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because coming into this office where we have, you know, hundreds of people in this office, I've kind of met everybody, because for a couple of days I volunteered to do the temperature scan so I can meet people. So I've kind of met everyone and been introduced to everyone, but I'm horrible with names and faces. Even faces. Sometimes I can't remember faces of people I've met and talked to before, when, you know, when I get submerged so quickly into an organization. So a lot of times I can have anxiety trying to talk and meet with people, because I'll think, you know, I've probably met them before, I don't remember their names. So sometimes it can be hard for me to overcome that, but ultimately I just need to jump in and just really start getting to know more people here.
Yeah, I do remember you mentioning that temperature check method that you were doing to get to meet people. And honestly, I think that's a great idea. So just because it's not a technical project or something that seems all that interesting doesn't mean it can't be very influential to the rest of your career. So thanks for that answer. So this last question is for all you managers out there who may be struggling to understand how to reach out and effectively manage this new generation of YPs. As we all know, attitudes and values do change with time. So who better to get advice on what this new generation of YPs look for in a manager than someone who just entered this industry? Without further ado, Lexi, being a YP in your own right, what is probably other managed by other YPs? What do you value in a manager? You know, hands off versus hands on, how they listen to you, you know, what your goal reviews look like, etc.
Yeah, and this really goes back to kind of that developmental focus conversation early on, where I know that my biggest weakness is dealing with ambiguity. So what I value most in a manager is just having a clear direction of where to go, and I have clear expectations from them. And at the end of that, also having the feedback to know what I could have done better. So I'm most motivated when I feel like I'm making an impactful contribution to my organization or my company. And this means that I'm given work that either directly contributes to a concrete goal for the company, like or coming up with an estimate for a project, or when I'm working on something to help others do their job more easily or efficiently. So when I'm given this work, I like to have clear communication of what's expected of me, why this work is important, and to be pointed in the right direction of how to get started. I don't need someone kind of micromanaging every single decision I'm making, but I like to have, you know, a clear direction of what are the resources I'm going to need to figure out this problem. So from these resources and expectations, later on, if I do come up with a question, I'll know better the correct questions to ask and who to go to, and then further resources I'll need to help figure out that project or problem. So on the back end of this, once a project has been completed, I really value feedback and kind of checkups throughout, because I like to know what I did well, what I can improve on, also how things are typically done. Since I'm new to this company, I'm always asking, you know, like, well, what steps do people usually take for this? How long does this usually happen? Or how long does this usually take to get done? Because I don't know all of these things. I don't know if it takes, you know, like, it'll take me a long time, but I don't know if it should take, like, you know, 5 hours to get something done. So once I know all of that, I can know how I deviated from kind of standard practicing procedures pretty much.
Well, once again, Lexi, the TAPPI YP division and especially myself would like to extend our thanks to you for all the time you've given us the past few months, just so we can learn a little bit more about you. For all you YPs out there right now, I would also like to take this time to encourage you to look at becoming a member of TAPPI and joining the YP division. All at a very healthy discount, I might add. We thank you again for listening to these videos, and we hope to see you at one of our TAPPI events sometime very soon.